let's talk about a challenging go-around scenario, and then let's ask ourselves, how many of all of our flying hours, how many hours do we have actually in the middle of a go-around? Not too many. So it's really worth us taking a look at how to properly and proficiently execute these maneuvers when we need to. I think you're going to like this scenario. Okay, here's our scenario today. We've got going into Van Nuys with Arnie in the CJ3. Flying the ILS Zulu to 16 right, looks pretty straightforward. Our weather is 1003. But on our descent out of the final approach fix, we're still in the weather, and the tower calls that they've got an aircraft stranded on the runway with a blown tire. Execute the publish missed. So how would we go about this? Typically pickle, power, pitch, flaps, gear, flaps, and then nav and autopilot, right? But let's take a look at how we would actually execute this. When we read the details, we're going to climb to cross a mile and a half south of Van Nuys VOR at or below 1750, then continue the climb to 4600. The profile view shows that we were headed towards 1095 for the decision altitude. And when we look at the blow up of the chart, the VOR is north of the field. We're coming in from the north, and the first restriction is a mile and a half, which is south of the runway. So let's take a look at how Arnie flies this one for us.
All right, glide slopes alive and capture. Down we go, power coming back. All right, final checklist complete. Gear down, flaps full. 3 knots fast. Continue. And correcting.
November 163 Mike, we've got a disabled aircraft on the runway. Execute the missed approach as published.
As published, 163 Mike on the go.
Autopilot.
Okay, power coming up. Flaps up. Gear coming up. Nav. Flaps. Power coming back. Nav. Autopilot.
Right. 163 Mike, be advised the missed approach altitude is 1,750 feet.
Oh,
Autopilot.
I missed that. How did I do that? No, it's too late to do that. I can't get back down there.
163 Mike, contact departure now on 120.4.
20.4, 160 Mike. And departure at 160 Mike on the mist.
163 Mike, roger, radar
Altitude.
contact. Give us a call when you're able to copy the phone number for Van Nuys Tower.
Okay, we'll give you a call. We're ready to copy now.
In this particular case, for the ILS Zulu to 16 right at Van Nuys, there's a footnote that says a descent to at or below 1,750 feet may be required when executing an early missed approach, which is exactly what happened here. So let's take a look at how we could have executed that to avoid the situation Arnie had. Okay, we're on speed on glide path. Looking to break out. A little bit fast and correcting. Nothing yet. Starting to see the ground. There we go. Breaking out.
November 163 Mike, be advised we've got a disabled aircraft on the runway. Begin the missed approach as published.
Okay, 163 Mike, we copy. Missed approach as published. Okay, so my first restriction is to cross at or below 1750. I'm just going to keep the approach coming, not go all the way to my 1100. I'll stop at the 1750. So we'll select nav and VS, keep on this glide path so we can get our altitude select to stop us. Add just a smidge of power, anticipating the go around. Range down a little bit so we can see what we're working with. Our turn is at VNY02, which is at or below 1750 at the missed approach point. So we'll go ahead and get leveled off here at 17, capturing at 1700 just like we want. We'll go ahead and add just a little bit more power. Start accelerating above 130, get towards 140, 150. First move, we'll raise some flaps. And we'll go ahead and get our gear. And the rest of our flaps. Okay. Just going to stay at this altitude till we cross that restriction. I'm going to dial up my next missed approach altitude now to 4600. There we go, we're ready for that. There's our missed approach point. 1.5, pickle,
autopilot,
pitch, power, flaps, gear, flaps, nav, and we're good to go. Climbing to 4600. And 163 mics on the mist.
Remember 163 Mike, contact departure 120.4.
120.4, roger. That was pretty interesting and challenging. Let's debrief this just a little bit. There's a lot of takeaways here that I'd like to make sure we close out with. I think what caught Arnie was the description of the missed approach itself, beginning with the word climb. And so you get into your head that the first thing you're going to do is climb when you execute a missed approach. And then it was reinforced by the controller's instruction to execute the missed approach, and then he added as published. So we're already geared up to do that pickle, power, pitch, flaps, gear, flaps right off the bat, right? So, but this was early, and he said execute the published missed approach. So there's lots of time to think about this. And that's why I chose, when I did my approach to it, to turn it into a localizer where I could get the target altitude to level off just below the 1750 restriction. You might have noticed I made a little bit of an error in there myself when I did that procedure by selecting nav. I did a double take on the nav button, and I actually caught that by going back and checking my scoreboard to make sure I had the modes that I want to get back into nav. It had downmoded into roll, and I had to correct that. So the way you think about these, this could have happened not just at Van Nuys where the footnote is in there that you may have to descend. Tower could break you off and could have said instead, discontinue the approach, fly heading 240, maintain 4000. And then again, there's no rush for any of this. It's just like any other vector from downwind to base on a radar approach, a radar vector to an ILS approach, where you take your time and no rush on this. But when you do an approach to a missed approach at the missed approach point, you're down low, and it is somewhat urgent to get those steps done immediately and in sequence, because you're low to the ground, you're in the weather, and you need to join that missed approach procedure. So you didn't have the time there that we do when we conduct one early. The other extreme is when you have to conduct a missed approach late, past the missed approach point, like when you're beyond your TPL, your touchdown point limit. You may need to go around. You want to consider things like the fact that you don't have terrain clearance, obstacle clearance, as you do when the approach is constructed from the missed approach point. So you need to think about that as well. And finally, this could happen from a circling approach where you may not want to select nav too early and have it fly you out of the protected airspace before you're high enough. So lots to think about here, and the way to do your briefings for missed approaches is to walk through, what if I go early, what if I go on time, what if I go late? How does that affect my steps in the pickle, power, pitch, flaps, gear, flaps, nav, and autopilot? Think through those ahead of time. You'll note that on most of these odd ones, you have extra time, if you think through them ahead of time, to do the right things. So until the next time, fly safe.
So I know that flying a go-around or a misapproach is not something that we get to do very often in the aircraft. But after watching the video and grabbing some of these great techniques, I know that we'll all be safer in the event that we have to do a go-around or a misapproach for real. Until next time, fly safe and check 6.